So we move on to our next invited speaker, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Drew. Dr. Michael Drew is the Director of Health Research within the Joint Health Command. In this role, he oversees the strategy, governance and partnerships relating to health research, as well as undertaking and commissioning research that preserves and optimises the health of the Australian Defence Force. Prior to this role, he worked at the Australian Institute of Sport for over a decade in various roles, including senior sports physiotherapist, research manager, team physiotherapist, including many overseas competition trips and managing an innovation program to improve Australian Olympians' health and performance. Dr. Drew has a Bachelor of Physiotherapy honours, a Master of Clinical Epidemiology, PhD in Physiotherapy, and is studying an MBA with a speciality in change management. Dr. Drew holds an adjunct associate professor appointment at the University of Canberra, is a Fellow of the Australian College of Physiotherapy by original contribution, Fellow of the Australasian Institute of Digital Health, and a Fellow of the Australian Sports Medicine Federation. Since 2018, he has worked with the University of Canberra to develop the Master of Applied Clinical Epidemiology Sport Program, which was a world first degree program to give practitioners the skill set to prevent health problems in high performance environments. Michael has authored over 75 peer-reviewed publications and presented over 60 conference presentations, including invited and keynote presentations. In 2018, his team received an Australia Day Award for their work in improving athlete health. Today, Michael will present how can health services support human performance, what is the relationship between an individual's health and their performance, what steps is Joint Health Command taking to enable ADF capability through health research. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael to the stage.
We're all here and we're talking around performance, and I just would like everyone to just take a silent moment to think about your own health and how that might contribute to your performance in your role. And then take another moment to think about the person sitting next to you. Maybe they're in your section or the wider brigade, and think about their health and how would that affect you in your role, and what would you do to support them and yourself to optimise your health so that you can sustainably and optimally carry out your duty. So even at the highest levels, this was I ripped it out of a speech by the Chief of Army not long ago, but they're talking around enhancing and expanding health, logistics, engineering and aviation capabilities. But if we go down to the bottom, the 4 ways that they're going to do that are robotics and autonomous systems, artificial intelligence and machine learning, quantum, whatever that is, and HPO. So this is a discussion that's going right from the bare bones of what we do, how you work with your members, what you do through your own behaviour, all the way up to how can it actually expand capability of the ADF to undertake their tasks. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So I've spent nearly 17 years in high performance sport, and when I came to the RAS, there was a skeleton. It's always skeletons. There was a skeleton not in the closet, but in literally the waiting room, and it said, "You break them, we fix them." And I just looked at that day one, thinking, "Oh, RAS, the pinnacle of sports medicine in Australia," and it is, and there's some wonderful people there. I thought maybe the philosophy's wrong here. Why are we comfortable breaking people? And even if we do fix them, what has happened? We've probably lost an opportunity to perform, and also that individual's lost, in a way, their right to be healthy and well through their life. So it started me really deeply thinking around how does health enable performance. It wasn't just me. So other people around the world started publishing these editorials. Keeping your top players on the pitch, the key to football medicine at the professional level. Absolutely, but you can almost just sub out that to defence. So how do we keep our people available to do their duties? But also I think there's a dual role of defence. One is we need you to be healthy to undertake what you do. It's an arduous task, it's mentally and physically challenging. We need you to be able to withstand that. But also in my role, we also have to look around your total health and wellbeing across your life. And so how do we actually protect your lifetime health and wellbeing in the process of undertaking those arduous tasks? We started thinking around, well, is health and performance, are they teammates or are they opponents? And a lot of the time people will say, health isn't performance and performance isn't health. But if you just think for a moment, like how well performing would your section or your whatever size you want to think of the groups, how well would you perform if you didn't have health? So it is an undeniable factor in performance, because if you don't have it, you don't have performance either. So I love throwing data at an opinion fight, so people might debate that. But let's have a look at this. So this is a paper I was on. It's rib stress injuries over a Olympic cycle, but over nearly 90,000 athlete days we followed them. That's a fair task, by the way. The bottom part there, no athlete with a rib stress injury, so this is a rib, like thinking about a bony problem in their ribs, because if anyone's rowed, it's not really a fun sport. It's even less fun to watch for 30 hours a week. But no one who broke a rib, if you want to think of it that way, won a medal in the year that they broke it or at the Olympics. So we end up in these debates, and it's quite fun to watch, less fun to be in, where people will say, we've just got to push, you've got to push to the edge, and then you break. And that's the real challenge with the whole performance part, is pushing to the limits, but also understanding that those limits have to be, use the guardrail sort of analogy there. Because if you tip over, it's not just you that doesn't win a medal in this. Those people, although now I've realised I've used the wrong sport, which is slightly embarrassing, but those people are in a crew. So it's not just you and your performance that goes, your medal chance goes. You've actually kind of affected your mates' performance and their goals as well. So thinking around your health is not just your health. Your health is also the person next to you's health and what they have to do, particularly in tight, small teams. We know that there's an irreplaceable dynamic there. So protecting health also protects performance. Any NBA fans in the crowd, if you're also a gambling fan, this is probably a good thing to start to watch, is injury rates. Over 25 years of data, so that's a really big study. The teams with the lowest injury burden are the ones that end up finishing higher on the table. Now, this is one of those Sherlock moments. People already know this, but there's actually strong evidence to say those that can manage the health of their key players are the ones that win. And think about that, whether it doesn't matter, NBA, it could be AFL, it could be whatever you follow. The teams that are consistent, the same people in the same positions over and over, just repeating that effort, are the ones that are able to get that outcome. And why would a team not have that consistency? Working in sport for quite a while, the number one reason is they're not available to be selected. So thinking about health as that contributor and that enabler is really what the take home there is. Again, just nailing the point. 11 years of UEFA League data. Now that was like 1.1 million hours of game time. That's a lot of game time across different leagues and all that. Higher availability of your athletes. So the percentage of their players that were available to be selected each week correlated to higher points being scored. Even if you don't follow soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, that's usually a good thing. And lower injury burden and higher match availability were also associated with that end state, which is making it to the finals. So we now start to think about this. How much potential does this have? So I've sort of hopefully sold the point that removing health removes performance in a way. But let's start to think about, well, what's the opposite here? Athletes who complete more than 80% of their training weeks in the final 6 months leading up to the Olympics or Com Games or World Championships, and this is track and field data, by the way, now, they're 7 times more likely to achieve their goals. So that's 700%. Think about that. To put that in perspective, taking caffeine. So caffeine does enhance endurance, we know this. But in endurance cycling, the effect is 3%. You can improve your time trial by about 3% by taking caffeine. But we would all agree that caffeine may help you, particularly those that have done endurance work. So this is massive. Like, just think about that. It also accounted for 80% of those successful seasons. And in the converse, only 2.6% of athletes could reach their goal without training for 80% of the time. Okay? And those, it was actually 2 or 3 people in the cohort. They were also the greats. And I mean the best of the best, multiple gold medalists. So unless you are that, you have to train. And even if you are that, you have to train. The other part was people who were injured in the final run-up were also more likely to get injured in competition. That's not a good thing. But what we've found is that those final run-in injuries don't occur just out of the blue, a couple of months out. What's happened is 6, 8 months earlier, they've been injured, and they've been injured, and then they're injured. So we kind of say your mum or your grandma's right, things come in 3. And so when you get injured, you're more likely to get injured again. And each time you get injured, your resilience goes down, and you're able to withstand the amount of training also goes down with it. So that preventative mindset is absolutely crucial for maintaining your performance. And sickness as well. Those who got sick in the final 2 months, it was even worse. No one met their goal if they got sick in those final run-ins. So just to put that into perspective in a graph, I'll orientate everyone here. So on the y-axis, you can see the percentages. So at the bottom of the graph, that's 0, which means that they didn't have any training modifications in that final 6 months. At 100%, it meant that every training week was modified due to injury or illness. So again, a bit of a Sherlock moment, but these people down here look better, and these people up here look different again. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist. If you've not trained without injury for 100% of your final 6 months, odds on you're not going to win. Okay? But that green box down the bottom is really important, because those that were consistently training week in, week out, uninterrupted by injury and illness were, if you compare the red and the green boxes, that's where the 7 times likely comes out of that statistic there. But more importantly, you can see that box, or the uncoloured box in the failure group, all those dots at the bottom. There are also a lot of people training consistently that also didn't win. And so we also need to be aware that health doesn't explain all performances. And we can think about draws. You might have drawn the hardest heat. You might have had the crosswind. You may have not gone through the tactics or the tactical elements of the race or your plan as well as you could. So if you want to win, should train, but it's also what you do in the training that matters. So switching gears now, coming back into defence. So I worked for 10 years at the Australian Institute of Sport, and through the AIS and Army MOU, I sort of got familiar with the Defence Force. I was a combat engineer when I was younger as a reserve, terrible one. Wasn't for me. But I did enjoy it though. And so I thought this was a bit of a closing the loop coming back into defence, using the craft that I've done in high performance sport and bringing it back to defence. So in my role, we work to the ADF health strategy. And I know most people in the room do not care about this document. There's a lot of people in Canberra that don't either. But it's there, and it's actually a really good document because it says, hey, we care about your health, and these are the things we're doing. Clearly, the health system is under pressure anyway. Every health system in the world is under health pressures. But generally speaking, there's 6 focus areas and 7 enablers, and I look after one of those 7. This one's really akin to human performance. So the question here is in force optimisation. So when we're optimising the force, we want that resilient and optimised force. As for the lieutenants in the room, as commanders, you want the people that you're charged to work with to be healthy. And if you're in the ranks of private to corporal, you are those healthy, optimised force people that are going out and doing those tasks. But to get health, as I've articulated already, it's built upon a broad base of physical and mental health. It is the foundation in which all that other stuff starts to work. There was a nice picture of exoskeletons, I think, earlier, maybe Jackie's presentation, but equally health is looking at these, of how do we enable the soldier through augmenting their abilities. The area that I look at is about a unified and targeted and timely approach to research. So at the end of this presentation, I'm going to put up an email address, and I would love for people to tell me what they think. What do I need to direct my resources and my people to solve? Now, we will only do that in partnership with the single services. It's not me as Joint Health going in and reaching in up here in one brigade. We'll do it through the right way, but unless I know what to go after, we may be going after the wrong thing. So please reach out if you want. But it's about that timely approach to solving the problems that need to be addressed. You touched on the increasing need to be preventative, and Ange gave a really great example of how, I like the example of we observed something and then we just did something innately. The common sense approach. We call that the dirty science approach. It's probably not the best scientific method, but geez, it makes an impact. And we want to do that as well. So here's the health research framework. Broadly, you don't need to know what's in all the boxes, but just for awareness, we want to get after some priority areas. And I'll show you these in a second. They're broad themes, but what I'd love is for you to help us craft what we do in those themes. We're identifying partnerships and streamlining that. So the little stat, when we came in March, the average was 11 months and 7 lawyers for a research contract, and we're now down to 1 month and 1 lawyer. I prefer the less lawyers. The time was just a sweetener. The other one was research governance and oversight. So it's actually really hard to get approvals. There's you go up and down, up and down. So we're streamlining that. So good ideas are able to be enacted really quickly. And the last one is build and strengthen research translation into policy and practice. And we'll have a lot of effort going towards that in the coming years. So here's the priority themes. Again, you probably could have rattled these off. I thought when we did it, I was smart. I told my mum, and she's like, of course, great. Thanks, Mum. But there's 8 themes there. And so we really want to know how healthy you all are and what should we be doing to help you be healthy. Musculoskeletal injuries. Army in particular is known to have injuries. What are we doing about it? How do we get after that issue to make sure that you're both healthy in the short term, but definitely over the long term too. We don't want you broken at the end of your service. We want you in a really good state. Mental health, well, clearly we're under a Royal Commission at the moment, but also it's the right thing to do. You have an arduous task and we need to look after you. And the one at the end, which I'm going to focus on, is the health of the future warfighter. That's the really cool one. That's our think big. What are you going to be doing in warfighting in the future? Let us know. We want to start to get ahead of that problem. So, as I said, in wrapping up, we want to hear from you. I'm not trying to circumvent the chain of command or whatever. But if you've got a thing if you've got a problem that you think we should know about to put in the mix, please just reach out. We're friendly. Christy that mans that email is the friendliest person you'll ever meet, and we'll give you some advice back, or we'll escalate it to those that might be able to help. Or just give me a call. And so, in wrapping up, if an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, the thing I really want you to walk away with is, well, then they're probably worth a stone of performance and a ton of capability. So with that, thank you.
The first one is from Major Phil Riley at Headquarters 1 Brigade. Are there any current or planned research projects under Joint Health Command in the area of wellbeing and or moral injury, particularly in prevention?
Thanks for the question. So two parts there. One is around wellbeing, and then the second one is on the moral injury itself. So mental health and wellbeing is one of those priority areas of the 8 that I mentioned. There's a really great project that's due for completion. Well, it actually is completed. The report's coming out later this year. I'm going to say December, but before Christmas, let's agree on that. It was an interesting take on, we know members may not declare that they need some help early on. And so it was a 4 sort of pronged study where we asked families, command, members themselves, and health professionals around what are the factors involved with allowing people to go and get help where they want. And the Surgeon General has said any door is the right door. If you need help, go and find it. And but this was really about understanding what can we do in joint health to enable earlier intervention. So we know little problems take little intervention. You leave them, they become bigger, and they take longer times to get over. So it's really around that earliest possible intervention at the moment. And there's a few projects. The Watch is the main one, and so we will be getting those results out soon. The second one is around the moral injury. The moral injury is a real topic of conversation at the moment. It's still being defined. So there has been some work funded by DVA at the moment. So Phoenix Australia down in Melbourne Uni is the research partner, has looked at, I suppose broadly, what is it? And then how do we measure it? And from there, we're now thinking about what is next. So there are things underway, but the moral injury has been, I suppose, known, but it's now starting to be gripped up and defined, and what do we do?
Great. So I'm going to ask a question now, Mick. And I guess if I put my own physio hat on, you spoke about a lot of the data and the studies that have been done in that high-performance sport world, and those being able to predict performance and success. If we switch back into Joint Health Command space now, what is anything you can comment onto the way forward with how we capture some of that data within Joint Health Command and how that might then help us predict some of these models and injury prevention?
Wonderful. We all know data collection in a defence environment is challenging. There's a lot of policy, a lot of rules, a lot of forms. Still learning every day about the forms. But yes is the answer. So part of the first priority there, which is the measure and monitor the health of the force, what we're broadly doing is trying to get some better data. There will be, in the next couple of years, a study which we would like and invite everyone in the room to participate in, so we can understand how healthy you are, what the things you prioritise are, and start to get after that. But it's a big undertaking to do it well. We're working with DVA in partnership, so the idea is that we collect data and factors relating to health, both in and out of service, and work together to essentially protect your health and wellbeing over the lifetime. So at the moment I'm leading a team and a project to, over the next 2 years, really get to all those requirements we need to do it well. In my experience in the last 6 months, we do things, but it doesn't always eventuate to that sustainability. So we're really focusing on how do we collect that data routinely and almost in a forever sense.
Fantastic, thank you, Mick. We have one more question. This question's from Lieutenant Tori McKay from the 1st Health Battalion. With the recent change to 5-yearly periodic health examinations no longer being required for J1 or 2 members, how is Joint Health Command going to optimise health surveillance? I'm not sure if you're able to speak to that one, Mick. Great.
I'm not involved in the PHC reforms, but there are actually some really key reasons why that's happening. So screening and health evaluations and those type of services are a very large proportion of the health system presentation, so why people go to the health system. I'm not sure what it's like up here, but we do hear feedback that in different brigades and different areas that it is not always to get in in a timely manner and all that. And so part of that reform is to think about how do we best deliver healthcare to make sure that we're using those resources to maximise your health. So the change for that has some data and underpinning on it. I'm not a part of that project per se, but I do know that it's well justified. But coming to the data side of the things is there's actually other things that we can do through data linkage or active participation by brigades and others that want to get better data that means more to you than ripping it out of the DES or what other data systems, which it's not its primary purpose. So we're trying to do it a little bit smarter by also freeing up some resources to deliver healthcare for you.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Dr. Mick Drew.